Jets wide receiver Adonai Mitchell was a guest on the Downs to Business podcast where he talked about his trade from Indianapolis to New York, as well as what his role and outlook is on this Jets offense in 2026. We break down his comments and much more on a live Saturday episode of the DTereman Football Show, and it starts right now.
Be a winner. Not only have to understand how to win, but to understand how to consistently win.
What is going on, Jets fans, and welcome into another episode of the DTereman Football Show. I am your host, DT, coming to you on this Saturday afternoon. It is a beautiful day in South Carolina. Unfortunately, I spent most of my morning working, but I was able to sneak in a driving range session before the show. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. We are just almost at 1,900 subscribers, so thank you all so much already. We do have an ongoing raffle giveaway for when we do hit that 2,000 threshold, and I've finally gotten the item. I purchased it late last week. It is going to arrive at my house on Wednesday. It is the Curtis Martin signed mini helmet. So how this raffle works is a $5 super chat or higher will earn you a raffle entry. $5 is one entry, 10 is two, and etc. And then gifted memberships, one raffle entry per one membership gifted. So we will tally up all of the entrants between now and hitting 2,000 subs, and then we will raffle away the Curtis Martin mini helmet. So $5 super chats or gifted memberships get your name on the wheel. So the talking point today is Adonai Mitchell and his comments on the Downs to Business podcast, which is Josh Downs and Caleb Downs, brothers, their podcast. And he was talking a lot about his move from Indianapolis to the New York Jets and what his role could be in 2026, what his immediate thoughts were after getting traded. And he had some interesting comments about a potential rookie quarterback entering the fold. So the first clip I have is him talking about the immediate thoughts after getting traded to New York. I'll read a quote here before playing the video. He said, "It was the reset I needed. Indy's wide receiver room was crowded, and a couple of things happened that changed the sequence of events. So getting a fresh start was the best thing for my career. They were happy that I was there." They, meaning the Jets, obviously. So the couple of things that happened that changed the sequence of events on the Indianapolis Colts side of things, first and foremost, I think it was the death of owner Jim Irsay and then his daughter taking over the role of ownership and being way more hands-on involved than we've seen most, first-year owners. And then obviously Daniel Jones having an over-expected season for the Indianapolis Colts, being the number one seed in the NFL for the first half of the season. And then, like he said, the wide receiver room was crowded. They had Michael Pittman Jr., they had Alec Pierce, they had Adonai Mitchell, they have Josh Downs. So now they've gotten rid of A.D. Mitchell in the trade last year, and then they get rid of Michael Pittman in a trade this year to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they are thinning out in their wide receiver room, but it was very crowded and it made sense for him to move. So I do like that he thought it was the reset that he needed. Here are his comments on the situation going from Indianapolis to New York.
2-16.
So,
wrong clip. Sorry about that. That is the quarterback clip. This one.
Like, bet. Well, Garrett was hurt, and I'm like, he got a chance to go in there and go crazy, like show him how good he is. And like you said, coaches was like happy he was there, like they was all in on you, which is great. That's what you need. Yeah. So I feel like it was a good move. Like, hey, like it's good for him. So you can make a crazy name for yourself up there and go dummy. So yeah, we happy for that. So I mean,
so the reason I pulled this clip specifically is because you see the way Adonai lights up when he says you can make a crazy name for yourself in New York. And the reason I pulled that clip specifically, not because I thought what he said was important, but I think it is a proving concept, right? That even though New York is not a good team, right? We have not made it to the playoffs in 15 years. We haven't had a winning season in a decade plus at this point, but it still goes to show that New York, the city, New York, the aura, the vibe, everything about that is very enticing to players. They want to come here and make a name for themselves. And why not do it in a city where if you turn them around, you are absolutely, they're going to build statues for the entire Super Bowl winning roster is going to have a statue wherever it's going to be built when the Jets win the Super Bowl. So like, that's the stuff that players, coaches, they all dream of that part of it. And New York really amplifies that. So I do think that was really important to note. And like he said, it was the reset he needed. Sometimes when players get traded, one, they're usually a little comfortable in their current spot and they don't anticipate getting traded, right? Maybe like a Sauce Gardner situation, right? He was building his house and he was fully invested in the New York Jets, and then he gets traded a couple months after getting signed. Sometimes, players, maybe like a Kyler Murray, right? A change of scenery, right? An Ad Mitchell going to a new team where he can become the number 2 instead of the number 3 or 4 on the Colts. Maybe that's going to be the best thing for his career. So I do like when players take the trade as more of a positive mindset, more as like, oh, I was completely shocked and now I don't really know how to react. I'm kind of in a tailspin in my new city. It seems like Ad Mitchell, first and foremost, was wanted here by the coaches. And I think you even saw that when they pushed and Darren Muji kept saying, well, I wanted them to up the offer. And then they threw in Adonai Mitchell. And I don't believe it was just a throw in of Adonai Mitchell. I think that was very calculated by the Jets to say, hey, this is a player we identify as somebody we can work with and grow and develop into who we think is a wide receiver 2, maybe even a wide receiver 3 at worst for our football team. So I don't think it was a throw in the trade. So I'm happy the coaches are happy to have AD. I'm glad that he's happy to be here as well. So I thought that was the coolest part of that was that the New York vibe, the New York attraction of the players. I understand everybody's going to say that the state taxes and everything like that for a player are excruciating. And most of them live in New Jersey anyway, but still New Jersey taxes are crazy high compared to maybe like a Florida who doesn't have state taxes. So for all those reasons, I get why the Jets are unattractive, but players still want to come here. They want to be a part of this team. So with that, he was asked about his coaching staff. And I thought it was funny right at the end of that clip. Josh Downs starts asking him about the new coach that they hired, and he meant head coach. And it kind of made me laugh because it showed that Josh Downs, a player on another team in the NFL, and these guys usually aren't tapped in to everything that's going on around the league, but it came from Josh Downs as if like he assumed the Jets had changed at head coach, and he was asking Adonai about who the next head coach was for the Jets and what his thoughts were on him. But Adonai was like, no, we didn't change coach. We got a new defensive coordinator, and then we hired Frank Reich. And then they started talking about Frank Reich a little bit, and he talked about how he reached out to Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce about playing under Frank Reich, and they had nothing but good things to say about Frank. I don't think many players maybe, privately will just like joke and like bash a coach to each other, but they'll never admit that publicly. So I took that bit of a comment with a grain of salt, but it is true that Indianapolis had a really crowded wide receiver room, and AD, wasn't a part of it when Reich was there, but half of those guys were, and they played under him. So it is nice to see that they had positive things to say about Reich. We'll see exactly how AD lines up in all of this. I have a feeling that they're going to draft a wide receiver between picks 2 and 44, and they're probably going to start as the wide receiver 3. I have a feeling they really like Adonai as their number 2. The other comment that Adonai said that I thought was a little bit interesting, and it doesn't really mean anything. He's not in the war room. He's not talking to the scouts or the GMs or anything like that. But I do think when it's a wide receiver and you're thinking about drafting a quarterback, you're probably going to put out some feelers with players currently on the roster, or at least see what they think about some of these guys. I know it is for sure the inverse, right? We even heard when Aaron Rodgers was here, he was scouting, some wide receivers for the Jets and giving his feedback on guys that he thinks he can throw the football to. So I'd have to assume that in some capacity, they're probably saying like, hey, Garrett, hey, AD, like, what do you guys think about these college quarterbacks? I'm sure you're following LSU and Alabama and all the, quarterback schools like, Carson Beck at Miami, even going far in the playoffs, obviously Fernando in Indiana. Like the NFL players are still focusing a little bit on college, right? They root for their teams. They know all about their current rosters, if they're making the playoffs, this and that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they asked AD a couple comments about what he thinks about these quarterbacks. But when Caleb and Josh asked him about his thoughts on the quarterback class, this is what AD had.
So what you think y'all are gonna draft the QB or what?
Now 2 and 16, most likely not.
Who is the second best quarterback this year?
I don't
Because
know.
Mendoza gonna go 1.
Ty Simpson.
I like Ty.
And I thought that was funny that Caleb said Ty Simpson, former teammate of his at Alabama, of course.
I like Ty. I
That's
like
16.
I like Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah.
I remember I remember when we played them, I was at Georgia. This was my sophomore year, I think 2022. And we played LSU in the SEC championship.
Yeah.
Beat the brakes off of
Jaden Daniels got hurt. Garrett Nussmeier come in. I'm like, bro,
Going
who
crazy?
is this? Like, he was like Kayshawn, I think Kayshawn Booty was still there. Malik Neighbors was going dumb. And I don't even know if BT had hit the scene crazy like he did yet. But I'm like, yeah, this dude is a problem. Like, I thought he was gonna dang near win Heisman at one point.
So kind of interesting comments there from AD about the two quarterbacks specifically. Obviously, he was very short, but said he likes Ty Simpson. Caleb tried to sneak in, or Josh tried to sneak in, do you like him at 16? And clearly his first comment was most likely not when talking about taking the quarterback at 2 or 16. Again, I'm not saying he's dropping intel on the Jets draft plans. I don't think he's that involved in the process. Maybe he's just, looking around at what the Jets are doing in mock drafts at 16, and it's probably not Ty Simpson. So he's probably thinking about other positions. He might even be looking at the guy who could be entering his very position group room in a Jordan Tyson or a Mekhi Lemon, an Omar Cooper Jr., who's been a riser and a popular mock draft pick at 16 to the Jets. So I thought it was interesting that he talked about Nussmeier like that when he came in 2022, which obviously proves, one, that Garrett Nussmeier has been a starter in the league for a long time. He backed up Jaden Daniels and then became the starter. And he was throwing to very quality wide receivers, as you heard AD say. Kayshawn Booty in college was good. Malik Neighbors, obviously. And then BT, Brian Thomas, he said he hadn't even come on the scene yet. And it's like, okay, but we know what Brian Thomas ended up being at LSU half of his career with Nussmeier. So it is interesting that Nussmeier came in, gave that impression to AD, and that kind of stuck with him. Not saying the Jets are drafting or not drafting Ty Simpson or Garrett Nussmeier, but I did think it was interesting that he talked about those two quarterbacks specifically. The other thing that he talked about, not really Jets related, but just college football related in general, was the NIL landscape. And I only want to bring this up because I think the NIL landscape has just gone completely way off the rails from what they anticipated it being when they first started it. And he mentioned that his sophomore year, or his first year in college, was the first year that they implemented NIL. And he said the evolution of what it is from when I first entered college to what it is now, he said you have 17 and 18-year-olds, touching millions. And it's kind of a crazy concept. And he goes on to talk about how, you have to be responsible with that money. And when you're 17 and 18, getting that much money, it's not conducive to long-term success each and every case. And he even said himself, he's like, if I was that young making that much money, I would have just spent every dollar. I wouldn't have thought about investing and this and that. So I did think it was cool to get a former player's perspective on NIL, because for the longest time, all these former athletes were pushing for NIL and for players to get paid. And I agree with that. I absolutely think to some degree, these players should get some sort of financial benefit, and all student athletes, not just football, of course. but have we gotten a little crazy with it? They talked about Malachi Toney, the wide receiver for Florida, who was 17 and a half years old when he made his first $1 million. He was interviewed by a social media guy, and he couldn't tell him how young he was when he made his first $1 million. So it's like, it's kind of crazy to see the evolution of NIL, but to get the former player's perspective, because these guys are only a couple years removed from college. He played in 2023. He was in his final year at Texas. So it is cool to get their perspective on the NIL landscape, because I think it has gone pretty crazy far. So that was the last of the non-Jets comments. But the main comment that, of course, everybody's going to say this is just like a version of player speak or coach speak, whatever you want to call it. When he was asked about the Jets' young offensive talent, he said, if we are all able to put it together and our potential is met in one season, obviously that's pretty unrealistic, but he said, just stacking everything and being consistent, we can really do something that hasn't been brought to New York in a minute. So that is obviously talking about the talent already on the roster. So Garrett Wilson, Adonai, Brees, Mason. At the time, they still had Mechie, so they included him into this category. But that just makes me think, yes, obviously, if everything and everybody hits their stride all at once, things could be great in New York because of the talent that we think we have or that we perceive to have. Clearly, things aren't always going to align like that. You can probably bank on Garrett being the most consistent piece. Can another one of these wide receivers eclipse 400 yards? Like, it's absolutely insane that Garrett, only playing September and October, was the highest receiving yards total on the team. So, like, we need guys to actually hit their stride and not even hit their full potential, but 70% of their potential, right? And if, 3 or 4 guys can do that on the offensive side of the ball, maybe the most consistent, person that we need is Geno Smith. And hopefully he's just not slinging the ball all over the yard with reckless abandon, right? He needs to be calculated with his aggression, throwing the ball down the field. But I think there is potential, like AD is saying. I don't have as much hope as he does, obviously, but that's because he's in the building and he has to obviously have more hope than anybody that they can turn it around. But it's a belief in themselves and a belief in what they're putting together in the building, that they think that he basically said, if we all just buy in, we will be good. So take that how you will. If you don't like Aaron Glenn, you don't like the coaching staff, the players are taking it upon themselves, saying that it's on us to buy into the coaching staff, and that's going to lead us to our biggest success. So I couldn't agree more with AD. We have potential. How much potential? Like, are we a 0-win team? Probably not. Are we like a 3 to 8 win team? Obviously, we're somewhere in that range. I'd say maybe like 5 or 6 wins after free agency. Did we get 2 wins better with a couple of the key additions that we made in free agency? Upgrading at quarterback from having a guy who was afraid to throw the ball to a guy who's never afraid to throw the ball. Do we upgrade a little bit on the margins to be a 5-win team? I think that's more comfortable before we get into the draft. Now, coming out of the draft, can we be a 6 to 8 win team? I don't know if I will go as far as 8 this offseason. I really have to be impressed by the moves. And, probably once we get into camp, think maybe 8 wins. But I'd say 6, at most 7 wins right now. Even with the really good draft, I think that's probably the realm that we're floating in. But the reason I brought up AD and the potential of this offense, obviously you guys see the title, How High is the Jets' Offensive Ceiling? We talk about what the defense turnaround needs to look like, right? They got to go from 30th to probably top half of the league, right? We'll just say top 16 or top 18 on defense. And that would be a market improvement. And I think Aaron Glenn could save his job depending on what the inverse looks like on offense. What does that jump look like from 29th total offense? Can they get to maybe 20th best offense? I'm not asking for the world from this offense. They clearly didn't make an addition of free agency at wide receiver. They're looking at the draft for that position, obviously. But I did do a little bit of research on Pro Football Reference, and I have teams 29 through 20 on the sheet of how of offenses, in terms of total offense, as my computer just decides to absolutely freak out. You mentioned it once, Black Gypsy, about me using technology, and it just absolutely has gone haywire for me ever since. So here we go. Pro Football Reference, this is teams 29 through 20 in terms of total offense. And I highlighted 5 key categories. I want to compare them just to the Chargers because the Chargers were the 20th team. And it is kind of I don't want to even say an outlier because they were a playoff team, but the Chargers were a playoff team and the Chiefs were a perennial playoff team before this year, obviously losing Patrick Mahomes to the injury. But you have the Chargers, Chiefs, Commanders, Cardinals, Falcons, Dolphins, Vikings, Panthers, Jets, Saints, and then Jets in this group. The Chargers at 20 are so much better than the Jets at 29 in these 5 key categories. Yards per play. The league average is 5.3 yards per play. The Jets were at 4.4. So they were almost a full yard lower per play than the league average. The Chargers were 5.2. That's pretty solid. In terms of passing yards, the Jets were way lower than every team on this list at 2,385. The next highest is 2,800 with the Vikings. Everybody else is over 3,000, some even over 3,500, like the Los Angeles Chargers. They have 11 more passing touchdowns and only 1 more interception. Obviously, Justin Herbert is more of a gunslinger, right? I think Geno Smith is more of a mold of a Justin Herbert than a Justin Fields. So we had a low interception output at 13 because Justin Fields was literally afraid to throw the ball, and he would go months without an interception, but he would also go many of those games without a touchdown. So it was really hard to look at their 15 to 13 touchdown and to interception ratio and say this is a good thing. That is a very bad thing when you have 13 interceptions and you're actively trying not to throw the ball in harm's way. So 26 to 15 touchdowns is the biggest jump there. First downs achieved. This is just a joke. The Jets are at 136. The Chargers are at 185, and there's teams in this mix like the Arizona Cardinals, who are finished 3rd overall in the league in terms of draft selection, 216 first downs. They had 80 more first downs than the Jets, and they were just as bad as us from a record perspective. So the Jets achieving first downs is just, it's anemic at this point. And then the final category, all the way on the right-hand side, expected points added from the entire offense. This is bury your head in your hands type of category for the New York Jets. They're all the way at minus 104.5 points expected. The Chargers are at 31.8. That is just a ridiculous difference. Even the Minnesota Vikings at minus 40. That is the next closest to us. A difference in minus 64 expected points added. So I get it. It's just a nerd analytics stat that really doesn't mean much, quote unquote, but it does mean a lot because play in and play out, your offense is literally working as a detriment to your defense, and you are never going to win football games when you can't put points on the board on offense and your defense is letting up 14 play drives on the other end. So those 5 categories to me are the biggest areas that I think the Jets will show obvious improvement. And can you go from the 29th best offense to the 20th best offense? I'm not asking you to be a top 12 unit in the league. I'm not asking you to even be like league average. Can you just not be bottom 5, bottom 6 like we have been for the last, I don't know, it feels like 7 years? Outside of 2015, it's probably every year. I don't think we've gone better than 22nd offense. And that was the Josh McCown year in 2017, I believe. So we need to get out of the basement in terms of offense. I don't know if this coaching staff and this roster, even after the draft, is the roster that's going to be the one. But if you want to see improvement on this team, I feel like that's the place to start. I understand everybody wants defensive improvement, and that's certainly important. But if you can't do a damn thing on offense like those stats just showed, you're not going anywhere. And it doesn't matter. You can win all your games 3-0, but at the end, like, you're still not going to make the playoffs. And even if you did, you wouldn't go far. So offense has to be a huge focus. And it puts a lot of the onus on Frank Reich to get it right, who is Aaron Glenn's second choice as offensive coordinator. Obviously, Engstrand was fired, and now they had to, pivot to Reich, who has experience, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's good experience. He wasn't Steve Wilkes, where it was 5 one and dones before he got to this job. But you look at his time in Stanford, where, he was pseudo helping out Andrew Luck, the new general manager over there. And then it didn't end well in Carolina for him. His years in Indianapolis were so-so. And I know his quarterback play wasn't great, but he has Geno Smith now. So it's not like his quarterback situation has greatly increased. So I don't know what I think the Jets offense could be or will be, but I think the expectation needs to be at least 20th best, because if you're bottom 12, I don't see it being a scenario where players and coaches keep their jobs for 2027. With that, I will open it up to the room. Hit the like button, subscribe if you are new to the channel. Remember, $5 super chats or higher will get you an entry for the Curtis Martin mini helmet giveaway that we will be giving away once we hit 2,000 subscribers. I joked about it earlier, but Gypsy was making fun of my technology skills, and yeah, they're certainly lacking today. I don't know if it's the heat. I don't know if it's my computer just being a little slow with all these tabs, but it needs to fix itself. Yeah, Black Gypsy, I did say taxes, didn't I? Uh-oh. Peg and Artie, I appreciate you. Hope you guys are doing well. Weather's probably real nice where you guys are. Pat says, what's up, DT? I think it's mandatory for Jets to pick a receiver within the first 3 picks and also double dip for another receiver before the 4th at the latest. I can get on board with this. Now, I also could, and I've been saying this for a while, and I'm not saying this because I absolutely think it's going to come true or I'm clinging to the fact that it could be true, but taking 44 and flipping that for a current NFL wide receiver, probably a little bit better than taking one at 33, in my opinion. But yeah, you probably got to get a guy with a cost control contract at the wide receiver position using one of those picks. I would prefer one of the guys to just be there at 16, right? Jordan Tyson or Mekhi Lemon. I would rather one of those guys just be there at 16 and you don't have to, trade any assets, and you have 5 years of cost control with whoever that wide receiver is. But yeah, I think the first 3 picks, that's a relatively, fair expectation. I wonder what the crash out will be from Jets fans if they come out of night 1 with like Arvell Reese and Dylan Thieneman and they don't have a wide receiver and they didn't sign one in free agency entering day 2. Like, is everybody just going to assume they take whoever it is at 33, even if it's a reach? We'll see, but it'll definitely be interesting to see the opinions after night 1 of the draft. Gypsy says, Love is going to the Titans. Are the rumors in a trade-up scenario? That has been the smoke right now, is that the Titans might trade up to number 2 with the Jets. And if that's the case, I mean, you got to ask them for enough this year, but you should try to ask them for an asset in 2027. And I understand the sense of urgency to get players in here now, but if you get 2027 capital for moving back from 2 to 4 and you realistically get the guy that you probably would have taken at 2 anyway, man, that would be the dream scenario, I think, right now at the top of the draft. John Hepburn, what's up, man? I appreciate you tuning in. He says, hey, Dylan, Jeremiah Love is being compared to Emmitt Smith by Mel Kiper. Can we really pass on a player with that much promise? He immediately becomes the face of the franchise. I don't know. I can't say, I agree with Mel talking about Emmitt Smith. I was not really alive for Emmitt Smith's career. And if I was a baby. So I don't want to say that like, oh yeah, he's just Emmitt Smith. I agree with that. I also was accused of having Mel Kiper brain by our friend Buffalo Jet fan with my mock draft opinions. So I don't know. I guess it's easy for me to say you can pass on Jeremiah Love for an edge defender that you think is a blue chip talent. On talent alone, Jeremiah Love is my 3rd best player on the board. I think it's down Styles Love as I currently have it. So I understand it from a talent perspective. Now, becoming the face of the franchise, I don't care for a wide receiver or a running back, being the face of the franchise. I understand some teams have done it in the past. The Cowboys with Zeke Elliott, the Giants before they let Saquon go. I don't know. I can very much get on board with not taking Jeremiah Love at the top of the draft. Yeah, we're not Super Bowl contenders, like Anthony says. So you already have Brees. You're not a Super Bowl contender. Drafting an RB is wasting capital. I agree with that. I think you can certainly do a lot better and get a player of more impact, because even if Jeremiah Love is here, you've tagged Brees Hall. So is he playing on the tag and you're just getting rid of him after 1 year? Are you you can't trade him for 2 first-round picks because that's what has to happen. I don't know. Do you sign him to a long-term deal and then trade him immediately? It's very confusing on what you would end up doing with Brees Hall. And they decided to use the tag on him, so I just think that it's they're gonna ride it out with Brees, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy they give a 2, maybe 3-year contract to when it's all said and done. Tank for Ty. I'm sure this week you'll enjoy one of my future episodes that I'll be doing on the show. A little tease. I'm trying to find that line in the sand. That's what I've been calling it. We'll call it the Ty Simpson line. Where do I personally feel comfortable taking Ty Simpson? Over which prospects at 16? Well, I want to go through each position, see how I have them ranked at the top, and then say, hey, would I rather take Ty Simpson over wide receiver 5 or 6? Or would I rather take him over, a tight end or the 3rd best offensive lineman on the board? So we'll be doing a future episode probably this week, maybe not Monday because that's the one with Buffalo, but we're going to find the Ty Simpson line on this channel. So you definitely are going to want to stick around for that one. I wouldn't say it's straight foolishness, but I think it's not being considered enough by Jets fans. And that's not to say that I'm only taking Ty Simpson. Like I said, there are several players I would take at 16 over Ty Simpson. Is that player Denzel Boston? Maybe not, right? Is it, the 4th best safety if Downs, DTereman, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren are off the board? Probably not again, right? Like, I'm not taking him over whoever, is it AJ Halsey is the 4th best safety, right? So, there is a line in the sand for Ty Simpson for sure. Boss Girl, she says, DT, since you evaluate, do you believe many of ours problems spring from poor mechanics? If that's fixed, does he have the IQ to succeed? He has the size and arm talent. I will say he has the size and he has the arm strength. I don't know. I don't see the arm talent enough on field. Like, arm talent to me is like layering a pass over the linebackers in front of the safeties, fitting it in a small little window on the boundary. I don't think he has the arm talent right now. He can develop the arm talent, right? You can develop arm talent better than you can develop arm strength. I still think talent, it outweighs arm strength. If I have a guy who can throw it 70 yards, but he can't hit the ocean from a boat, it doesn't matter, right? I want the guy who can throw it 55 yards and put it in a small window. So there are a lot of things I think Aller can clean up in terms of his footwork, marrying the top half of his body and the bottom half of his body so that when his feet are pointed in a direction, let's say, 2 o'clock on an analog clock, he's pointed at 2 o'clock. He needs his shoulder squared, ready to throw at 2 o'clock instead of trying to do a little bit of wonky top to bottom mismanagement. So I think that there's a lot of things that he could fix. And, that's the coaching staff's, job, the quarterback coach, whether it's Bill Musgrave or whoever it is where Aller gets drafted. But I don't know how many of them can be fixed. I don't know if he has it up top. I think he's a fine, smart person, but is he a high football IQ person, right? That's what I think separates Ty Simpson from a lot of people for me is everything you hear from coaches and scouts and teams about Ty Simpson is his brain and his processing ability. Aller kind of gets a little scared in the pocket and doesn't go through his reads fully. Obviously, Ty Simpson has issues with pressure. So, it's just a tough one, and that's part of the projection process. I would say there's a handful of things you can't always fix with a quarterback, but if it's like a mechanical issue, Josh Allen got his arm and his mechanics fixed by Jordan Palmer. And then Jordan even admitted with other quarterbacks as well that you can work all off season with a quarterback to fix their mechanic. And then the first live pass they throw in August or September looks the exact same as they always have. So there's mechanical things you can always fix with a quarterback, but how long are the fixes and how much do they actually help? So is Drew Aller a long-term backup in this league? I think so. Is he a surefire starter right out the gates? I would hopefully think not. And then maybe, year 2, he can compete to be a starter. I don't see him being a starter out the gates like I could see for Ty Simpson. Let's see. Oscar says, don't get cute drafting for potential over the proven player. Draft guys that can come in and contribute right away. Yeah, I'm a heavy advocate of this mindset. With your first 4 picks, obviously there's misses, right? The Jets are very used to missing on draft picks, but I would say 3 of those 4 players have to be immediate impact players that are producing at a decent enough level for you right away. Obviously, 2 and 16, you hope are producing at a high level right away, but you need guys that are going to come in and contribute to this roster, to what this build is supposed to look like. Yeah, I agree with this. But if you take a Ty Simpson and you draft 3 players around him at 216 and 44 that all hit the ground running and are very good, right? You could have 2 in Arvell Reese, David Bailey, Ruben Bain. That could be a defensive player of the year candidate, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's surefire thing, but we saw it with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, right? What if they did that exact type of thing? They took a defensive player at 2. They take an offensive player like wide receiver at 16. They're both in the running for rookie of the year on their respective side of the ball. I feel like that's not setting that expectation there is high, but setting it to a degree slightly lower than that, I feel like is so realistic for this team. You need guys that are, bought in right away, like Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson, right? Those 2 players, one hit the ground running and one didn't. We don't have time for the Walkers right now. We need an Aiden Hutchinson who's going to come in and produce right away. Like Grenade says, if we could trade down, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I would, depending on how far it is. I'm not trading down to 7 or 8 or 9. I'm only going back to, I'm staying in the top 5. I don't want to go lower than the Giants because then you still guarantee yourself one of the 3 edge rushers or Sonny Styles, because you're assuming whoever's coming up to 2 is taking Jeremiah Love. So you have Fernando and then Love. Then you have 2 edge rushers go at 3 and 4, and then you have the 3rd edge rusher or Sonny Styles, or an edge rusher goes and Sonny Styles goes, and you have the choice of the 2 edge rushers. So I like the odds of trading back, but not outside of the top 5. Hawk says, some players are going to fall that we don't expect. Can't wait to see who that is on draft day. 100% agree with this. Somebody always falls out, and then they're in the green room, and the camera's always going to them, and they don't know when they're going to get their call, and they're looking, frustrated, and they're constantly refreshing their phone, and it happens every year. And there's always a guy that goes way more than expected, and it's going to be like a top 12 or 15 pick, and I would hope that happens as well, because if one person or 2 people off of the consensus board, outside of the top 15 go before the Jets at 16, you're probably having a pretty good player fall to you. Like, I could see a world, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, and I'm not saying I'm standing on this, wholeheartedly, but is there a world where Omar Cooper Jr. is the 2nd wide receiver off the board, right? Carnell Tate, maybe he goes 6 to the Browns. Omar Cooper Jr., maybe the Chiefs really love him at 9 instead of Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson, or maybe the Rams, same thing. They want Omar Cooper Jr. instead. Is there a world where that could happen? And then you push one of those guys down the board. So I agree with you, Hawk. We never know one way or the other. Who's going to fall? Who's going to be that guy that comes up? Like, if Blake Miller, the tackle from Clemson, is a pick before the Jets at 16, huge, because you're bumping a talented player down, and that's a position that the Jets don't need at tackle right now. So definitely going to be interesting. And that's the best. That's my favorite part about the draft is so many people will tell you what their crystal ball says and that they're always accurate. And no matter what, they're right. And it's always going to happen this way. And then one thing happens in the draft and it sets off a domino effect of absolute craziness. Oscar says, DT, what are the 2 coaching improvements you would like to see AG make this year? I think for me, it would be coaching players up on the sideline and being better with his timeouts, time management. Yeah, I 100% agree on timeouts and time management. There were several end of half situations, specifically more so end of half than end of game, but end of half scenarios and sequences, especially when Garrett Wilson was kind of, animated with AG on the sideline, yelling a little bit back and forth with him going into the locker room. I forget what game it was, but there needs to be a solidified plan. And when you're on defense and it's getting down to like the under 4-minute mark in the first half, you as Aaron Glenn, I don't care that you're calling plays now. You need to be talking with Frank Reich, the people in the booth, and say, hey, if this is our offensive situation, we're going to have to go 85 yards with 2 timeouts in a minute and 20 seconds. These are the things that we need to accomplish on that drive to set ourselves up in field goal range. So time management and usage of timeouts, 100%. I think we will see him coaching up players more on the sidelines. He did it to a degree, right? He was more so grilling and forcing accountability on the sidelines whenever we saw it. I do think now that he's calling the defensive plays, there could be a situation where the Jets just kick the ball off or just receive the ball on a kickoff, and Frank Reich is calling the offense and everything's flowing, whatever. And AG is in the back talking with the defensive front 7 on the bench, right? There could be a scenario like that where AG is looking at the tablet with the guys and coaching them up that way. So I would say that that's definitely something I expect to see. Now, the second improvement that I would like to see, besides the timeouts and the time management, honestly, I think it would just be no, I don't want to say that because I don't want to ask him to not be himself at the podium, but I do wish that there was like a little bit less like backlash towards the media. And that's not to say that I completely agree with the beat reporter side of things either. I just think that at the podium, I would like to see a little bit more of like a buttoned up press conference. And, if you're saying less, that's fine. But I just always feel like there's always like a half sentence or a sentence too much in some of these AG press conferences. And then we just run with the quotes of what he said and we just make fun of him the whole time. And it's like, damn, if you just like cut yourself off like 4 words short, you wouldn't be going viral on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. So I'll kind of, I would say the podium appearances, I think, for me. JD Surf City says, Cards are probably going edge or offensive line. Ty probably 25% chance at pick 3, in my opinion. I think there's a couple ways they can go for sure. I think Francis Mauigoa, the tackle from Miami, is definitely in play. Do they like David Bailey? Or if we take David Bailey, do they like Arvell Reese? Do they love Ruben Bain? Does Mike LaFleur want to get crazy and get Carnell Tate? I know they have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, but who knows? They could also take Jeremiah Love at 3, right? It goes Fernando, and then it goes Reese, and then it goes Love. I could see that as well. Ty Simpson, they're probably having internal discussions about Ty Simpson. I think that they would prefer to trade up from 34 to get Ty Simpson, if I just had to guess, which the Jets would probably prefer to do as well. But yeah, I don't think maybe it's not as high as 25%, but I do think there's like a 5 to 10% chance that he could be the pick, but he's 100% in the discussion at the pick internally for the Cardinals. There's no way around it. If you're in that situation, you have to be discussing it. The Jets are discussing it. They're probably not likely to do it or probably not going to do it and probably shouldn't do it, but when it's a quarterback, you have to consider every option. Rover, this is my favorite question to ask because I've asked this very similar question to people on social media or in the comments of their YouTube videos. Reese and Cooper or Tate and Mesidor? I'm taking Tate and Mesidor. I like Tate way more than I like Omar Cooper Jr., and I like Akeem Mesidor, not obviously close enough to an Arvell Reese. I really do like Arvell Reese, but throw on some Akeem Mesidor tape if you're trying to watch Ruben Bain, and the other guy stands out on the other side of the defensive line. So I would probably be in the minority here, but I'll say Carnell Tate and Akeem Mesidor. I would love a draft of like Tate, an edge, a safety at 33, and then a linebacker at 44. That would be really enticing. You don't have to, you don't have to go edge at 2. I would entertain Tate or Lemon at 2. Yeah, Oscar. I think Bailey and Muaga or Maui Noah, are the two likely ones. Yeah, Ty's over plus 2,500 to go number 3. Probably not likely, but I do think that they're having discussions. Hawk, he says, I want Styles to be a Jet so badly. I do too, man. I would love Sonny Styles. I wouldn't be in love with it at 2, but if they took Arvell Reese and then traded up and took Sonny Styles, he's like the rare non-premium pick exception that I'd make to trade up for. And then you have Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles back again. The Ohio State Jets. Ty should be taken in round 2 by all standards. I guess like historically, yeah, with like the starts and things like that, the injury or, illness concerns, if that's what you have, like weight issues. I mean, I think he's a second round grade in terms of talent for me, but I have him going in the first round still, even if that is like from 22 to 32 and somebody's trading up for him. 144 of you guys in the room. I appreciate it. 80 of you guys on YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe if you are new to the channel. We are doing our Curtis Martin mini helmet giveaway. $5 super chats and up will get you on the wheel. Gifted memberships will earn you 1 raffle per gifted membership. And just for an updated count on subscribers, we are 3 away from 1,900. So my hope and my goal is to be, hovering around 2,000 by the draft. So that just gives a little bit of perspective on how long the raffle will be going. User says CJ Allen at 44. I would like this. Does he make it to 44? And if he does, I think that's almost a run the card up type of situation. I would like CJ Allen for sure. He could be the quarterback of your defense, be the sponge next to Demario Davis for a year, maybe 2, and then become the guy in the middle of your defense. Leo, we'll do Chris Beast because again, technology is not on my side today. It's just picking chats that they want to put up. I'm halfway in my head reading Leo's dog's chat, and Chris Bees is the one that wants to go up on the screen. But yes, hit the like button, smash it, support, subscribe. Excellent Jets A+ content. I appreciate you, Chris B, as always. But Leo's dog, this is the one I wanted to get to. Heard Boomer say yesterday that he saw a mock where we traded back with the Titans for their choices at 4, 35, and 66. I would do this in a heartbeat. 35 and 66 is maybe an overpay to come up 2 spots, especially if you're getting a running back. But if this is what the Jets are looking at in terms of an offer, I just broke down the scenarios. You have 3 edge rushers and Sonny Styles. If you're picking at 4, you are guaranteed one of those 4 players, no matter what, because Fernando and then Love. So 100% I'm doing that. No questions asked. I saw that Boomer did react to that. I don't know whose mock draft it was. Maybe it was just some random person's, right? So who knows, but I would do this in a heartbeat. And then you have 4, 16, 33, 35, 44, 66, 103. Yeah, 100%. Styles is 6'5", playing linebacker, and he's the same size as Derrick Henry. I would love him at linebacker. I think his size and skill set is far superior to Reese. I hope he's one of the final names for pick number 2. I think he's in consideration for number 2. I don't know if I say far superior to Reese because off-ball duties, they're both very talented. Obviously, Sonny Styles might have a little bit more ability as an off-ball, but Reese has way more ability than him as an edge rusher. Like, we've never seen Sonny Styles even attempt to be an edge rusher. Like, yes, he blitzes sometimes, but can he be a full-time edge rusher? I don't think so. He was a converted safety at one point, so not many people make that transition to safety to defensive lineman. I know there's one scenario of it. I'll have to look it up. I feel like it was just a couple years ago. It was a Senior Bowl player, converted safety that was edge rusher. So I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that he's there at 2. But I mean, I think Reese is superior in terms of his versatility with that talent. I mean, Arvell Reese coming off the edge is pretty scary. Arvell Reese setting the edge versus the run is pretty scary. Like, Sonny Styles is not setting the edge like Arvell Reese can. So if you're asking them to play the exact same role their rookie year, which in my opinion, if you're taking Reese at 2 is 80+% edge, and then the rest at off ball, far superior, in my opinion, to Sonny Styles. Now, if you're only asking them to do one specific job each, Arvell be an edge rusher, Sonny Styles be an off ball, then you can argue that for sure. Robert C. So if you're saying the Jets take Styles at 2, I could very much see the Arizona Cardinals taking Reese at 3 because they went the who is it? Zaven Collins. They went the Isaiah Simmons route as well with those like hybrid linebacker types, and they sort of worked out. But yeah, I think the Cardinals would take Reese at 3 at that point. Oscar, give me a reason to recycle my Aaron Rodgers jersey, please. Somebody needs to keep the number. Well, they brought back Andre Sisco, and I'm not saying Andre Sisco deserves it. He just has the seniority on the number right now. Wild One Production says, Geno Smith starting means the Jets are tanking. Deal with it. Okay. Thanks for that. Hawk, do we have enough of a sample size of this, though? Like, we have a small sample size of Arvell Reese playing the edge and being good. Do we have any sample size whatsoever of Sonny Styles doing this? Yeah, Envelope, they do have a crowded room, and I forgot that they have Browning as well. I do think they are going to go offensive tackle if I'm just trying to guess correctly. Their right tackle right now is Elijah Wilkinson on a 2-year, $6.25 million deal. So that's not starter money at right tackle. So I think that's the route they're going to go is offensive tackle. Bam. Thank you, Grenade. It was Jalix Hunt. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I couldn't remember his first name, and I didn't want to butcher both. So I was just going to wait. But I appreciate that, Grenade, for sure. Yep, it was him. If Andre Sisco asks Arvell Reese for money for the number 8, I'm cutting Andre Sisco. Like, truthfully, like, there's no reason for him to ask for number 8. He didn't do anything to earn it. It's not like it was his number before coming to the Jets. I think it was 5 in Jacksonville. Like, if Aaron Rodgers had number 8 and you wanted to try to pry it from him, which you never try for the quarterbacks, maybe you got to slide him some cash. Oh, man. Didn't Sauce Gardner have to pay DJ Reed for number 1 right in the beginning of his career? I think he said he had to wire him like 50 bands or something for number 1. So like that makes a little bit of sense. But also DJ Reed had like just got here and he'd never wore number 1, I don't think. So it's interesting. If Sisco asks for number 8 or asks for money for number 8, I'm just cutting Sisco, giving Reese number 8, and then signing Sisco the next day. 100%. Yes, offensive linebackers can wear single digits now. Defensive ends cannot wear single digits. That's why Jermaine Johnson made that switch so that he could wear 11, because I think it's like 0 through 19. Everybody but offensive linemen and defensive linemen can wear them, I think. So I don't know. The numbers are kind of dumb. That's like my old man yells at the clouds take about football is from like a charting perspective and like watching a linebacker number 3 like go down into the box and it's not a safety. Like my brain is always like, oh my God, what number is that? Who is that? If it's a linebacker, it should be in the 50s or the 40s. It's tough keeping track of the numbers. Oscar, why do I think Caden Proctor has slipped? I mean, he can't keep his weight down. I don't know how much weight he's lost since the end of the season to the combine. And I guess it's unfair to say that he can't keep his weight down. We haven't seen him try to lose weight, but Alabama only encouraged him to maintain that weight and just play at a hulking size. So he's definitely going to have to get on some kind of diet regimen to maintain like a 340 frame. And he was like 355, 365 at the combine, probably played this season above 365. So he's just a huge guy. And I mean, yeah, at one point he was slated to be the first one off the board at tackle. A lot of people think he might even be a guard at this point. So I don't know if it was like end of season tape or the weight issues, but usually if players move a lot on the big board after the combine, it's usually something that doesn't have to do with football. Wow, that's quite the comparison. Sonny Styles to Brian Urlacher. I'm looking up Urlacher's measurables now because obviously when you think of just like absolute hulking bear linebackers, you really think of Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher. Yeah, he's 6'4", 258 pounds. So I think Sonny Styles was 244 at the combine. So you're not far off, Villette. Will the play be as equal as Urlacher? Because it was a different game back then. Boss girl, if I'm giving up 2 and I'm not getting a first round pick in any capacity back, we're getting fleeced. They're giving us a first in 2027. If this is the case, not a second. That would be awful for Darren Muji to accept. 36, 101 in a second next year, not a first. No, we're getting a first back. If we're moving out of 2, we're getting a first back. That's how I see that. That's way too little. Because they're going to give us 4. So you'd rather have 36, 101, and a 2 rather than 4, 36, and 66? I can't. I don't agree with that one. I would need a first-round pick next year. Like Grenade, 100%. If you saw, there were certain numbers at certain positions where it was like, oh, man, we got to watch out for this guy. 100%. 100%. Jets Rube checking in. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for catching us live. What guard would I take? I would take Olavenga Leone, the Penn State guard. I would consider Fano because he has literally 5 position versatility. And at 33 or 44, I would entertain Emmanuel Pregnon. Those are the guys that I'm the highest on. Other than that, give me like a Keelan Rutledge in the 3rd or 4th round if you find yourself picking in the 3rd round. So, yeah, those would be the 3 guys I like the most. The 3 guys I've done the most homework on, honestly. But I wouldn't be mad if they took a guard at 16 and then slid Parham over to center. I see you, boss girl. She had to add 4 in there. Yeah, this I would do. If they're giving us 4 and a second next year instead of 66 this year, yeah, that I would do. All right, last one here from Oscar. He says, it seems like Brees is stuck with us until 2027. I don't know if I would use the word stuck with us, but yeah, I think for 2026, Brees Hall is going to be a Jet. I don't see a scenario where they trade him at the deadline unless they are like absolutely dog water, like 0-7 again, which I don't anticipate. I would think that they get a 2-year, maybe 3-year deal done with Brees. That's really a 2-year deal with an option. And then, maybe you get out of it after 2027. So I hope that Brees is here for 26 and 27 because it's funny. The argument for keeping Brees is he can help a rookie quarterback. But we don't want to draft a rookie quarterback this year. And if we do, we just want it to be a day 3 pick who probably shouldn't see the field. So therefore, Brees is no help to him unless he's here on a 2-year or 3-year deal so that he can actually help the rookie quarterback in 2027. So I kind of get confused with the logic going on sometimes with Brees Hall and the rookie quarterback situation. I think if you aren't planning on taking your quarterback this year, you probably could have let Brees walk, but we'll see. All right, we'll end on this one because Charles is asking a good question. Did I miss the height of the ceiling? We didn't I guess we didn't discuss the height of the ceiling, but we discussed what it should be, and that could be 20th overall offense. The height of the offense, I mean, it's got to be like 16th at best. I don't see you being a above league average offense, right? You were top 10 in rushing. Can you be 22nd in passing? And then you find yourself somewhere in that like 21 to 17 range. I don't know. I don't see us being an above league average offense. Now, if something changes drastically in terms of, okay, we go get a stud wide receiver, Ty Simpson is running laps around Geno Smith in camp, then maybe the height of the ceiling is 12th. But again, I wouldn't even say that high. It's very, very hard to say the ceiling is crazy high, but the expectation needs to be 20th. Emo Brees. Yeah, that one was funny. Whoever posted the picture of Emo Brees and then he said he needed to make it his profile picture that's hilarious. All right. I said last one 3 times, but this is the last one. From Rube, Charleston Jets. Rube said Reese, Sadiq, and Concepcion top 3 picks would be nice. You're definitely having a lot more fun on offense if you add in a Sadiq and a Concepcion. Now, my only issue is if Frank Reich loves 11 personnel as much as we think he does, or as much as I believe he will, does Sadiq and Concepcion kind of get redundant? Not from a like play style perspective, but from a usage perspective, because would you rather have Kenyon Sadiq as your big slot, or would you rather have Casey Concepcion as your normal size slot? So I think you can get creative. The Sadiq one I'll push back the most on, but I wouldn't hate it at all. And I think you're having a lot of fun if you're Geno Smith in this offense. All right, we got to get Clifton in here. Anytime a 1 seed, makes his presence known, we have to address it. If we get Vega and a decent wide receiver at 33, it's DT at 420p on a Friday high. You're damn right, Kyle. You are damn right, Kyle. We will be enjoying that draft. I will be calling the sculptors, asking for Darren Muji's bust to be sculpted and crafted out front of One Jets Drive if we come away with those types of draft picks. Kyle, I appreciate you. With that, we are just over the hour mark. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. 140 of you guys still in the room. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. We're right there on the cusp of 1,900, on the road to 2,000, where we will be giving away our Curtis Martin signed mini helmet. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will be back Monday night with Buffalo Jet Fan, talking probably a lot of these draft things and him calling me Mel Kiper brain. So we'll be discussing a lot of things on Monday night, and then we will have the Ty Simpson line, drawing the line in the sand on Ty Simpson later next week. Appreciate it, everybody. As always, let's go Jets.